With the incoming Trump administration, what are the finances for blue states going to look like? Especially if the incoming administration wants to not spend any more money. Welcome back, Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Of course, you can like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning. Get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. Get the newsletter and get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus, and you can connect that way. So, obviously, January 20th is going to be a big day in the United States. Former President Donald Trump continuing to make history as being the only second president to win re-election for a non-consecutive term. So he gets into office January 20th. He's already lined up his nominees for various cabinet positions. But what happens to states like Illinois that have substantial debt? Yesterday, we talked about the unfunded pension obligations and how much taxpayers are on the hook for that. But we also see the state continuing to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars more each and every year, with the projected deficits about $3 billion next year, $4 billion the year after that, and then $5 billion each year thereafter to 2030. So a lot of liabilities and debts as Illinois continues to look at spending more. Recently, venture capitalist Peter Thiel, he spoke to the Free Press. It's a news organization with Barry Weiss at the helm. And they discussed for about 2 hours a whole variety of things. But close to the tail end of that conversation, Thiel talked about the politics and the what he saw was somewhat of a political upheaval with Trump getting into office, winning the popular vote, winning the Electoral College, winning both chambers of Congress for Republicans. And he says that while a lot of people may be talking about foreign policy and domestic policy, nobody's really talking about the looming bankruptcy of Democrat-controlled jurisdictions.
You know, this is what I speculate was one of the really big issues, even bigger than just the student debt problem, is maybe the bankruptcy of a number of blue states and blue cities. Illinois, Chicago, probably the tri-state area, New York City, maybe even San Francisco, maybe Los Angeles. And what we did in 2020 was we used COVID as a cover to bail all these places out. And then 2021, they spent even more money in this runaway Biden spending. And part of it was a way to bail out all these failed blue cities and blue states. And we should not be throwing good money after bad.
So Thiel talking about the COVID pandemic and how a lot of money went out to these blue states. Illinois received $33.3 billion over the COVID pandemic, according to pandemicoversight.org. And that's a lot of money. Now, if you were following all of the Illinois news back then before the pandemic, like literally right before the pandemic caused shutdowns, or I should say right before governors of states like Illinois used the pandemic to justify economic shutdowns and school closures and a whole host of other things. The state Democrats, led by Senate President Don Harmon, wrote a letter to Illinois' congressional delegation in 2020 before the pandemic, saying that they need $40 billion to get bailed out. And they listed a whole bunch of things. So they requested $40 billion from the state of Illinois, from Congress. They didn't get that. Instead, over 3 years, they got $33.3 billion. So Thiel talking about how that COVID spending was, in a way, propping up soon-to-be bankrupt states like Illinois, California, New York, and such.
And all that Trump doesn't need to do something heroic like shutting down the Department of Education or getting Congress to reduce appropriations. All he has to do for the blue cities and blue states to blow up is sit on his hands and do nothing.
So not to prove any more future spending for states like Illinois above and beyond what they may already get. So no new COVID spending, no new emergency spending, no new bailouts.
If you look at the possibilities of changing the system, there's a way the inertia seems so high that if we have to get rid of the Department of Education, I don't think that will ever happen. And then I think the Democrats have nothing to worry about because Trump won't really do anything. But if actually for the system to continue, you need to get crazy new spending approved, and all that Trump has to do is not approve the new spending, that's where I think you're going to be able to force radical change in California, in New York, in Illinois, where these places have to reform themselves or go bankrupt.
So again, radical change forced by no new spending to these Democrat-controlled states, something Peter Thiel says could bring about that radical change. Shortly after the election, Governor J.B. Pritzker, this was November 7th, he was asked about federal grant dollars and what could happen with the incoming Trump administration.
But any political actions that the president takes, I think, will be work to his detriment politically, and I think that to the extent that they break the law, because politics in many cases can't be imposed upon things that are due to the various states. So I feel reasonably okay about our ability to withstand anything that the Trump administration brings to us, but I can't predict the future.
Can't predict the future, but January 20th coming right around the corner here. More from the governor on November 7th, talking about possible withholding of police grants for sanctuary cities like Chicago, which happened under the previous Trump administration, and that was litigated.
On the first question, to the extent that these things are nonpartisan grants that are decided by independent groups within the agencies, which happens for most grants, it would be illegal for the Trump administration to stop those grants from flowing, and so we would take action if we saw that happening. Trying to think about any other grant-related stuff. He claims
that he would survive. Trump says he'd survive a legal challenge.
I don't know what to say except that it would be illegal if he did it, and I presume that the courts would find it so. We certainly would take action and work with our Attorney General to do so.
So the governor saying that it would be illegal for Trump to withhold certain grants, so he didn't seem too worried about it. Also warning Trump it would not be politically conducive for the incoming president to do this. But he also said he's not worried about transportation dollars.
Again, sorry, just to be clear, the federal infrastructure dollars, again, are decided on an apolitical, non-political basis. That's how they're supposed to be decided. And indeed, we've, trust me, I've, contacted lots of people in the federal government that I know, elected officials or, appointed political officials, to make sure that they know what Illinois needs. And I can say, for certain that, the independence of those divisions of the agencies really are making the decisions. And we've been very fortunate because we are at the center of the supply chain for the nation. And so we've received a lot of support. Indeed, we're one of the largest recipients of transportation-related infrastructure dollars. So.
And the governor continued taking questions about a variety of other issues. So Pritzker not necessarily too worried about the loss of federal funds, saying that a lot of it's already owed to Illinois. But what about the loss of those COVID dollars? What about the idea of forcing reform through withholding federal tax dollars from states like Illinois? I asked Republican state representatives Adam Niemerg and Blain Wilhour if the Trump administration should withhold dollars from a state like Illinois.
Yes.
The Democrat politicians in this state have been punishing the citizens with the policies that's pushed us to that brink for a generation. So the president, by withholding anything, would not be punishing Illinois. All right, you don't fix a problem by propping up. What we do in Springfield constantly is we prop up unsustainable systems. Okay, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in. So something is going to have to be a catalyst for change, because ultimately we're in the business of doing what's best for the citizens, and maintaining the status quo is not it.
So we'll see how this battle continues to play out with federal dollars at stake and a state like Illinois possibly being impacted by that. Could it spur on change? Republicans have been saying for years we need lower taxes, fewer regulations. They also say that we need to end the state's sanctuary status for non-citizen migrants. How is this going to play out? We'll be watching it closely, not just in the short term. This is going to be a 2-year storyline, the conflict between Trump and states like Illinois. So we'll be there for it, all right? Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily.